I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how I found out my wife, Emily, was sleeping with her boss, Mark. We'd been together for 6 years, engaged for almost a year. I proposed right after I got a new job, thinking life was finally settling into some kind of normal. I'd always believed in honesty, in sticking it out through thick and thin. But that belief got shattered in ways I never saw coming. It all started about 2 weeks ago. I noticed Emily acting weird. She was defensive over small things, hiding her phone more than usual. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed at work or just tired. But then I started noticing little things, her phone ringing at odd hours, her being overly careful about her messages. She'd suddenly get quiet when I walked into the room, not that I ever pressed her about it. I figured she was just hiding something minor, a flirtation or maybe an innocent crush. What really pushed me over the edge was a night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I thought I'd surprise her, maybe take her out for dinner. I got home around 4:30 p.m. Her car was gone, which was strange since she always worked late on Thursdays. I figured she was out with her friends or maybe at her mom's. But then I decided to check her phone just to be sure. I know, it's invasive, but I was desperate for some clarity. I unlocked it, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were dozens of messages between her and Mark, her boss, our neighbor. Flirty, suggestive, explicit stuff that I'd never even suspected. They'd been exchanging texts during the day, at night, even late into the early morning hours. Some of the messages were about meeting up, some about secrets and fun, and others about how much they both enjoyed the stolen moments. I scrolled through them in a daze, feeling my world collapsing. They'd been doing this during our entire engagement. I was stunned. I'd never had a reason to doubt Emily. She always seemed perfect, so confident, so bitchy even at times. But now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a cheat, and someone who's been sneaking around behind my back. I didn't even know what to feel first: anger, heartbreak, betrayal. The worst part is, I had no idea she'd been meeting him at our house while I was at work. Our house. The place I thought was our sanctuary. I started remembering the times she'd been busy after work, the nights she'd claim she was out with friends, the mornings she'd say she'd been too tired to make breakfast. All lies, every damn one. I felt like a complete idiot for not seeing it sooner. How could I have been so blind? How could she lie so convincingly? The moment I saw those texts, I knew I had to confront her. I waited until she got home that evening, my hands trembling as I held her phone. When she walked in, she looked her usual bitchy self, smirking, confident, like she wasn't doing anything wrong. I called her out right away, showing her the messages. Her face flickered for a second, shock, then dismissiveness. She rolled her eyes and started with this ridiculous, oh-so-caring tone, like I was overreacting. "Oh, come on, Jake. It's not what you think. You're being paranoid. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything." I couldn't believe her that she would just brush it off like it was some minor mistake, like it was just sex. Like it didn't matter that she'd been lying to me for months, sneaking around with her boss, our neighbor. I felt like I was losing my mind. I was furious, overwhelmed with a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend it was just sex, like it meant nothing? I looked at her, feeling this sick mixture of betrayal and anger, and I knew then that my whole world was falling apart. That night was the worst of my life. After I showed her the messages, Emily just shrugged and started talking like I was some jealous fool over nothing. "Jake, seriously, it's just sex. It doesn't mean I love him. It's not like I want to leave you. Mark's just convenient. We're both bored, that's all. It's not a big deal." She kept smirking like she thought she was the clever one, like she'd gotten away with something. I couldn't even look at her. I felt my stomach turn, a mix of rage and heartbreak boiling inside. I told her to get out, that I couldn't deal with her right then. She acted like I was overreacting, like I was the crazy one. She stormed into our bedroom, leaving me standing there, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. All the trust I had just evaporated in that moment, replaced with this gnawing suspicion that she'd been lying to my face for years. I spent the next few days in a daze. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Mark, her boss, sneaking around our house, pretending to be normal while I was at work. I started noticing more things, her phone ringing at weird hours, her changing her schedule, even her tone when she answered calls. She was hiding more than I thought. And the worst part was I knew I had to do something about it. But what? I decided to follow her one day. I couldn't just sit at home and do nothing. I needed proof, or at least some clarity. So I waited for her to leave for work, then I followed her. She went straight to her boss's house, Mark's house, just a few doors down from us. I saw her go inside, quick and quiet, like she was trying not to be seen. I waited, heart pounding, until I saw her come out an hour later. She looked flushed, nervous even. They'd obviously been up to something. I could see it in her face, and honestly, it made me want to throw up. That night, I did more digging. I found out from neighbors that Emily and Mark had been meeting at his place at hours, even during the day. She lied to me about being busy at work or running errands. She'd been sneaking around while I was working hard to support her. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. It was one thing to find out she was messing around, but knowing she'd been doing it right under my nose in our own home, that made me feel sick. I kept all this inside, though. I didn't want to lose my mind completely. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with evidence. I went back through her phone, saved some of the messages, took pictures of her car outside Mark's house, and even recorded some of their phone calls. I was determined to get everything I needed before I said another word. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, but I also knew I couldn't just blow up without knowing exactly how deep this went. The more I uncovered, the more I realized just how far gone she was. Emily wasn't just cheating on me. It was like she had no respect for our relationship or even for me. Her excuses about just sex, being bored, or how it didn't mean anything, they all sounded hollow now. I could see through her lies, see the damage she'd done. And honestly, part of me wanted to just walk away, forget her, start over somewhere new. But I also felt this dark urge to make her regret what she'd done. To show her that she couldn't just lie, cheat, and walk away without consequences. So I started planning. Not a reckless, impulsive plan, but a calculated one. I knew I wanted her to see what she'd lost, to feel some of the pain I was feeling. I wanted her to understand that betrayal isn't just some mistake, it's a choice, one that tears lives apart. I was furious, but I also knew I had to be smart. I couldn't just blow everything up without thinking it through. I had to make sure she paid in a way she'd never forget, and I was just getting started. Over the next few days, I put my plan into motion. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I knew once I crossed that line, there was no going back. I spent hours gathering evidence, saving all the texts, taking photos of her car at Mark's house, recording phone calls when I could. I needed everything, every piece of proof that she'd been lying and cheating right under my nose. I also decided to set a trap, something that would make her realize I wasn't just some naive guy who got played. One night, I waited until she was supposed to be at her friend's house. But instead, I hid in the shadows of our backyard. I'd set up my phone to record, and I had a little camera I planted near her usual meeting spot. I knew she'd come back that night, probably to grab some more of her secret stuff or just to check on the place. Sure enough, I saw her slip out of the house. Just after midnight, looking both ways with that sneer on her face. She went straight to Mark's house. I followed from a distance, keeping my phone recording everything. What I saw was like something out of a nightmare. They went inside and I could see their shadows moving behind the curtains. I stayed for a while, trying not to lose my nerve, until I saw her come out again about an hour later. She looked exhausted, flushed, and guilty. I snapped a few photos of her sneaking back into our house, then I slipped away, heart pounding, feeling like I'd finally caught her red-handed. The next day I confronted her again. I threw all the evidence on the table, texts, photos, recordings. Her face twisted in anger and defiance. She looked me dead in the eyes and started spinning her lies. "Jake, it's not what you think. Mark and I, we just—" She paused, then rolled her eyes. "It's sex, okay? Just sex. It's not like I love him. I don't even like him that much. We're just bored, you get me? It's not a big deal." I remember feeling so sick. Her words sounded hollow and rehearsed. The way she shrugged, like it was no big deal, like I was the crazy one for getting upset. I couldn't believe her, that she'd be so brazen, so unapologetic about it. She kept insisting I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. But I knew better. I knew she'd been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I felt this surge of rage flooding through me. I wanted to shout, to break something, to make her see that her lies wouldn't get her anywhere. But I also felt a deep, cold sadness, the kind that eats you from the inside out. I'd trusted her. I'd loved her. And now I was standing there, realizing I'd been played for a fool. For months, I had no idea she was with Mark, that she'd been secretly meeting him here in our own home, while I was working late or out with friends. Some part of me wanted to believe she'd be sorry, that maybe she'd realize how much she'd hurt me and try to fix it. But deep down, I knew. That was wishful thinking. She was the type to lie her way out of everything, to deny and manipulate until she got what she wanted. I felt disgusted, not just with her but with myself for not seeing it earlier. How blind could I have been? How much damage had her lies caused? I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to just grab my things and walk out, leave her with her lies and her cheating ass. But I also felt this sick desire for some kind of justice. An eye for an eye, a lesson she wouldn't forget. I knew I'd have to be clever. If I wanted to make her regret this, I'd have to come up with something she'd never see coming, something that hit her where it hurts. I wasn't going to let her get away with it that easily. Not after everything. After I laid out all the evidence, Emily's reaction was exactly what I expected. Defiance, denial, that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was winning. She kept saying she didn't mean anything, that it was just sex, that she didn't love Mark, that it was all some stupid mistake. She called me paranoid, called me jealous, said I was overreacting because I didn't understand her. Honestly, hearing her lie so effortlessly made me feel even more sick. She acted like I was insane for getting upset, like I was the one at fault for catching her cheating. I remember standing there, feeling my blood boil, feeling the hurt and anger swirl inside me like a storm. I couldn't believe I married someone who could lie so convincingly, who could drop her mask and act like she was the victim. But inside, I knew better. I'd seen what I saw, I'd heard what I heard. I had the proof that she'd been lying to my face for months, sneaking around at our house, meeting her boss behind my back. That night after she went to bed, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. It was like my entire world was crumbling. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Was I blind all these years? The pain was so sharp I could hardly breathe. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and deeply ashamed. Ashamed that I had trusted her, that I'd believed in her. I wondered how someone I loved so much could turn into this manipulative, sneaky person. I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare. But beneath all that darkness, I also knew I had to decide what to do next. I couldn't keep going like this, pretending everything was fine, pretending I didn't know the truth. I had to make a choice. Stay and keep pretending she'd change, or cut her out of my life completely. The thought of staying, knowing she'd been with Mark at our house, at the very same time I was working, made my stomach turn. I realized I'd never trust her again, not really. Every touch, every word would be tainted by her lies. I also thought about the neighbors. How many of them knew? How many had seen her sneaking out at night or saw her car parked at Mark's house? I'd heard through the grapevine that a few neighbors had noticed her coming and going late at night, that she'd been acting strange for months. No wonder everyone had that weird look when I waved. No wonder they kept their distance. I felt a mixture of anger and shame. Had I been that blind? Had I missed all the signs? How many times had I trusted her when she was clearly lying? Now I was sitting here in this dark room trying to piece everything together. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to be prepared. I had recordings, pictures, even a few texts I hadn't shown her yet. I was gathering my ammunition, figuring out how I was going to make her own her lies and finally see that she couldn't keep pretending she was innocent. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some fool she could manipulate anymore. And honestly, I was starting to think about a way to get revenge, to make her feel some of what I was feeling: humiliated, betrayed, broken. I knew it was petty, maybe even dangerous, but I couldn't just let her walk away with all of this. I wanted her to hurt the way she'd hurt me. I wanted her to realize she'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. And as I sat there, I knew I was only just beginning to fight back. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I kept collecting evidence, making plans, trying to stay calm even though inside I was anything but. I knew I needed to strike hard and fast to make her realize she'd messed with the wrong guy. I also knew I couldn't go on pretending everything was normal anymore. I had to confront her again, but this time with everything laid bare. One evening after work, I called her into the living room. She looked annoyed, like she was expecting some kind of apology or at least a pity party. Instead, I threw down everything I had. The photos of her sneaking out, the recordings of her calls with Mark, the texts she'd sent and received. I even showed her the evidence I'd hidden on my phone, proof of her meetings at Mark's house, the times she'd lied about being busy at work. Her reaction was instant. Her eyes widened in shock, then she threw her head back and laughed, a cruel, dismissive laugh. "Oh, stop it, Jake. You're overreacting. This is nothing. Just sex, remember. It's not like I love him. I'm bored, that's all. You're making a big deal out of nothing." She didn't even try to deny it anymore. Her tone was arrogant, like she was the one in control, like I was the one losing my mind. That's when I finally snapped. The rage boiled over and I told her to get out of my house. I told her I was done listening to her lies, that I'd had enough of her manipulating and cheating behind my back. She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "You're so dramatic, Jake. It's not like I cheated on you with him, just some sex, remember. It's not a big deal." Her words cut through me like a knife. I'd thought I was prepared, but hearing her dismiss everything with such ease made me realize she had no remorse, no shame. I watched her gather her things, her bitchy smirk still plastered on her face. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never leave me, but I knew better. Deep down, I knew she was just trying to manipulate her way out of it. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore. I felt like I was losing my mind, my trust shattered beyond repair. How could someone I loved so much lie so easily? How could she have been playing me all this time? That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling again, unable to sleep. My mind was racing, spinning through all the betrayal, imagining what she'd been doing while I was at work, while I was trying to build a life with her. It was a sick, numbing feeling, you know, the kind where you realize your entire world is built on a lie. I kept asking myself, where do I go from here? Can I ever trust someone like her again? The answer was painfully obvious: I couldn't. In the days that followed, I found myself withdrawing from everything: work, friends, even my own thoughts. I knew I had to make some kind of decision about our future. Part of me wanted to fight for her, to try and forgive, but the other part, more honest, knew that I'd never be able to look at her the same way again. She turned into someone I didn't recognize, someone who lied, cheated, and manipulated her way through our relationship. I also started thinking about how to get even, not in some reckless way, but in a way that make her feel the pain she'd caused. I wanted her to see that her actions had consequences. I wanted her to understand that she'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. And I realized I'd have to be patient, clever, and relentless if I wanted her to truly feel what she'd done to me. Honestly, I don't know what's next. I still feel torn, angry, betrayed, and exhausted. But one thing's clear: I'm not going to let her walk all over me anymore. The next move is mine. And just between you and me, I'm planning something she won't see coming. The final step in my plan came quietly but with full force. I wanted her to realize that her lies and betrayal had consequences, real ones she couldn't ignore. After everything, I knew I had to make her feel the weight of what she'd done, not just through words but through actions that cut deep. So I took my time, gathering one last piece of evidence, something that would hit her where it hurts the most. One evening, I waited until she was out for her usual errands. Then I set everything in motion. I went straight to Mark's house, the one she'd been sneaking off to for months. I knew the layout, the routines, and I had a plan. I recorded everything I could: her sneaking in, their awkward greetings, the way she looked around nervously like she was afraid of being caught. I left my phone recording and I snapped a few photos for good measure. Back at home, I knew what I had to do. I waited until she came back, acting innocent but twitchy, like she knew she was about to be exposed. I confronted her again, showing her the footage, the photos, the recordings. Her face turned pale, then furious. "You're crazy, Jake," she spat, trying to dismiss it all. "You're just jealous, you're overthinking everything." But I was. I was done listening to her bullshit. I told her she had two choices: tell me the truth or I'd make sure everyone knew what she'd been hiding. I played her own game, revealing everything she'd tried to keep secret: her meetings at Mark's house, the texts, the lies. Her bravado crumbled under the weight of her own lies. Her eyes darted around, trying to find a way out, but I had her cornered. She finally broke down, her bitchy facade cracking for the first time. She begged, pleaded, yelled. But I didn't buy any of it. I was done being her fool. I told her that I was leaving, that she'd burned every bridge between us, and I did. I packed my things that night while she sat crying, her false bravado shattered completely. I left her standing there, trying to come up with some excuse, some way to spin it all, but I knew better now. I'd seen her true face. Since that night, I've been rebuilding my life. It's been a tough road, full of anger, sadness, but also clarity. I realize now how much I trusted her, more than I should have. I learned that some people are better at lying than living honestly. And I've learned that revenge isn't about getting back at someone. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your self-respect, and walking away from the poison that was poisoning everything good in my life. Looking back, I see it as a hard lesson. Love, trust, honesty, those are fragile things. When they're broken, it's almost impossible to fix what's been shattered. But I've come to accept that sometimes walking away is the only way to truly save yourself. Emily's betrayal taught me that you can't force someone to change, no matter how much you love them. And that betrayal, deep and painful as it was, forced me to realize my own strength. So here I am, telling this story not for sympathy but as a warning. Be careful who you trust. Don't ignore the signs. Because if someone is willing to lie and cheat behind your back, no amount of love or hope can fix what's broken. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to let go and start over. The pain will fade, and someday I'll find someone who's honest, who values me enough not to cheat or lie. That's the hope I cling to now.